All right, so we're going to continue on with our journey of the responsive web design course certificate from FreeCodeCamp. And this whole entire series is going to be on learn basic CSS by building a cafe menu. So again, people go through FreeCodeCamp, and in this video, we're just going to go through them as a student, but then I'm also going to interject in with some thoughts from an instructor point of view as well. So if that interests you, then let's go ahead and dive into this section. All right, so it says that this one is 91 steps long. Let's go ahead and start the project. It says in here, CSS tells the browser how to display your web page. You can use CSS to set color, font size, and many other aspects of the HTML elements. In this course, you'll learn CSS by designing a menu page for the cafe web page. So it looks like this is what we have to deal with. Yep, nice layout. And I'm sure we're going to get into background images and getting things to go left and right as far as the French vanilla and the caramel macchiato, pumpkin spice, and so on goes. And it looks like we have some nice ways to center text and some pie. So it looks like it's going to be a fun little project for us to go through. And I'm delighted that it's 90 steps long. So let's go ahead and start coding. Step 1, it says in this project, you'll learn some of the basic CSS in order to build the cafe menu. CSS is the language used to style an HTML document. It describes how the HTML document should be displayed on the screen. As you go through a few steps in here that will resemble the cat photo app, we're going to need the basic starter code of the HTML, and that will include something like the doc type declaration HTML element. And we want to make sure that the language is English. Looks like what we want to do down here. So really, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this and go ahead and paste it in here since it has all the information that we need. And again, whenever you are a developer, there's going to be some keyboard shortcuts on Visual Studio Code that kind of gives you all the starter code, so you don't have to memorize the stuff that they're giving you here. All right, let's go ahead and check the code here. And it says, congratulations. We're ready to move on to the next one. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're in step number 2 of the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And in here, it says that we need to add a head element, and we need to make sure that it is inside of the HTML element. And the HTML element obviously is right here. It closes down here. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to create that head element. Now, sometimes we're going to create stuff inside of the FreeCodeCamp HTML document that they give us. We're not going to see anything visually happen. We should see something happen when we look at the title element, but the way that FreeCodeCamp has built this out, we don't get to see that either, but we can just test our code. Now, I'm always telling students, hey, if you're going to go ahead and create an opening tag, just immediately go ahead and close it. Visual Studio Code, if you're using it, it puts it in there for you, but sometimes we get into coding, or maybe our line gets so long that we forget about closing it, and we get frustrated with the check your code button, because I've done that a couple times. And let me tell you that we might as well just go ahead and do an opening and a closing and start from there. Now, the next thing that we want to do for here is we want to add the title. This is the title element block. Notice I'm doing an opening and closing for it, and I can move my cursor back to the middle to go ahead and add that title, and it's going to be cafe menu. And then we can go ahead and test our work. We get the congratulations, and we're ready for the next step. Let's keep on going. Step number 3 in building a cafe menu from FreeCodeCamp, we're looking at adding a meta tag. Now, this was one of the last steps that we saw with the previous one, and it's asking us to create a meta tag here. So we're just going to do meta. And inside the meta tag, we want to set the character set to UTF. So we're going to do this right here. We're going to do this, and then we're going to set that equal to, and then it has to be in quotes, the F, right? And then we can go ahead and check our code, and we get the congratulations. This is one of those tags that are a void element. Again, not able to see this when we are looking here besides hitting this test button. So we're still working with a blank slate. Hopefully we finally get to start designing after this one. So let's move on to the next step. Step number 4 in building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. We're looking at adding a body element just below the head. And again, this is where all of the information that we actually get to see actually shows up. So whatever we put in the body will be on the web page for us to see. So for this, it's just body, and then we're going to do the closing tag here, body. And this can all be on one line. I'm sure that FreeCodeCamp here will give us spacing, proper spacing for what goes next. I'm just going to go ahead and click on check on code. Congratulations, we're ready to move on. All right, we are on step number 5 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And in this step, it says that we need to add a main element. Now, if we remember from our previous one, this is really for organization. It's a semantic element, and that it can also be utilized for screen readers to know where that main content is when they hover their mouse over it. This time we're going to be adding the word main in here. I'm just going to add a new line. I'm going to do an opening close of main, and then I'm going to close it. Again, we're not going to see anything visually on our page quite yet. We're just building out, I guess, the framework of what this menu is going to look like. It says eventually this is going to contain the pricing information and the coffee and desserts that are offered from the cafe. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. We got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next one. Step number 6 in building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here that the cafe name is Camper Cafe. Go ahead and add an H1 element to your main element. Give this name of the cafe in all capital letters to make it stand out. All right, let's go ahead and do that. Now, if we remember from last lesson from it, it did say that there should only be one H1 on any given page to help out with SEO. And I'm going to go ahead and copy Camper Cafe, paste it in there. And now we finally get something visual to show up on our page. Let's go ahead and check our code, making sure that we did it right. We get the congratulations. Awesome. Let's see what's next. Step number 7 with the building a cafe menu from FreeCodeCamp. It says to let the visitors know that it was founded in 2020, go ahead and add a P element or a P tag just below the H1, so that way we can put est.2020 on there. Let's go ahead and do that. Now, again, I'm going through this the very first time as if it was you, and I don't know what's coming up next, but I do the fact that we're building things out first and then eventually adding some CSS. That's usually the process that I always tell my students to go is, let's get some stuff on the board and let's go ahead and then add the CSS later. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this just because I don't know how the spacing is with all these items such as that period. I didn't know if there was a space or not. So I'm going to go ahead and check my work. Congratulations. Let's go ahead and move on. And you can already see that we have our EST 2020 in here, a lot smaller than our H1. So see you in the next one. Let's see what's next. Step number 8 in the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says in here that let's go ahead and add a section element to the main element so you have a place to put all the coffees available. Eventually there's going to be 2 sections on here. It looks like one for coffees, one for desserts, just like we saw on the original preview of this. So right underneath here, we're just going to add that other semantic element, and that's going to be a section. Okay, and again, just open, close. Eventually, we're going to have another one in here. And if I was coding along with this or making my own project, I would definitely maybe even put both of them on there at the same time and just put comments in there on what each section is. And that really helps me. But I feel like if I add another section in here and maybe a comment, it's not going to like this when I hit the button for testing purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check code. It says, sorry, I did not go in there. It looks like I forgot the closing bracket on here. And let me go ahead and see if that works. There we go. Follow my own instructions, which is make sure that you have an opening closing tag. I just forgot to close the trailing one there. But let's go ahead and move on to step number 9. Step number 9 in the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it tells us that we need to create an H2 element that is in the section and give it the text of coffee. So pretty simple. Remember, heading tags that goes from 1 through 6. You only want to have one heading number 1 type. Again, following my pattern that I'm trying to tell you is wherever you have an opening, go ahead and do a closing. And we're going to do coffee in here. Notice that it shows up here. H2s are always a little bit smaller than H1s. And of course, like I said, it goes all the way down to H6 for headers. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. There we go. Congratulations. Let's go to the next. All right, so building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. This step here, step number 10, we finally get to put some styles in, but this step we're not going to see anything quite yet, it looks like. So it says up until now, we've been limited regarding in the presentation of this and the appearance of the content. So now we're going to be able to start taking control of this, and we're going to be adding a style element tag. Now this needs to go in the head section, and typically the way that styles work, you can either do inline styling, you can do it with styling tag like we're getting ready to do here, or you can do it in a totally separate file and link it. So with this, it appears that we're going to keep it all on one HTML document, which is fine. However, for like larger projects and stuff, sometimes it's nicer to just have a separate file just for the CSS. So there may be a little bit of scrolling to the top and then going back down, top, going back down. So it looks like we're going to start adding some styling here. So inside the head, we want to add a style element. This one's real simple. It's just going to be style, and then we're going to open and close it here. And that is our style element. Again, we're not going to see anything because we're not exactly doing any kind of CSS targeting quite yet. So let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's go ahead and move on to the next. Step 11 in the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here that we can add a style to an element by specifying it in the style element. So we want to be inside of the styles. Of course, I'm going to hit the enter key to give us some room here. And it says that you can set the property by naming the element. Okay. And then we have these curly brackets. I always call them curly boys in class. And we want to name the element. We're going to have a curly boy. And then we have this concept of property and then value. So notice that we have a colon on here. And with this here, we want the property on the left-hand side, the colon, and then the value on the right. And then another important thing that students will always forget is that semicolon that we see right here. In order to center something, okay, we first want to identify what do we want to center. Okay, in this case here, it's going to be the H1. And then we're going to do the curly bracket. I'm going to hit the enter key to move on to the next line. And then I'm going to hit the tab button on here. And again, notice that the curly brackets, it automatically populated the opening and closing for me, which was really nice. And then the property that we want to attack here is the text align. So we want that there. And then we want the colon. And then we want the value, right? And the value is going to be center. Now, it's very important for there to be a semicolon at the end of this. As I told you so many times with students in doing this, they will forget the semicolon and the code breaks at the point of it missing a semicolon, because it's almost like we're at the end of a sentence, you put a period, right? Otherwise you have a run-on sentence. If you forget the semicolon at the end of each value, then your code is going to break from there on. It's not going to hit anything below. Anyways, that's all they really wanted us to do with this, is center the text. Let's go ahead and check the code. We get a congratulations here. We're ready for the next step. All right, we're in step 12 of building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And it says in here, the previous step, we added a type selector of the H1, which is what we can see right here. And we wanted to center it says center the content of the H2 and the P elements by adding the new type selector for each existing. So in this case here, it wants us to go ahead and move on with the next selector type. So we're going to do H2, curly brackets, and then we want to go ahead and do the center align. Now there's multiple ways of going about this, and I believe that it wants us to separate these things out individually. And something also special to note on here is that any other H2 that we decide to put on here will have that text aligned center. So I know we talked about it before where every web page deserves an H1 and only one of them, right? Now, we can have multiple H2s, and I'm assuming we're going to be doing that here shortly, but just know that this doesn't just affect the first one that it encounters, it infects all of them. And same thing with the paragraph tag that it wants us to do. I'm going to go ahead and do another one here. Matter of fact, let me just copy this and paste it here. Let me fix the indentation. And I want this to be the paragraph element. And notice that now I have everything here centered. Now there may be a better way about going about this, but again, I'm just going through the instructions that they are giving us. And then I'm going to go ahead and check our code here. We get the congratulations, and we're ready to move on to the next step. Step 13 of building a cafe menu from FreeCodeCamp. It says on here, now that you have 3 type selectors with the exact same styling, you can go ahead and group these into, we can actually combine this all into one is what it's trying to let us know. And assuming that each one of these have the word center in it, okay? And we can tell that each one of these, it's like redundant code, I would say, each one of these. And it's saying, hey, you know what? If you're doing the same styling to all of these, you can just group the selectors together by adding a comma on them. And that's what I was alluding to in the previous one. Was like, there might be a simpler way about going about this than how they are doing it. So it says on here, delete the 3 existing selector types, the H1, H2, and the paragraph, and combine it all into one. And so really, I'm not going to delete all 3. I'm going to just delete 2 of them, and I'm going to comma separate each one of these. So H1, and then I want the P, and then I also want the H2. And again, it could be in any order. You can see that it works. Let's go ahead and check the code. Maybe they want it in a certain order, but we'll see. It looks like it wants it in a certain order, although it works the same. So let's go ahead and do that. H1, H2, and P. And let's go ahead and check it. And there we go. In this case, order does matter, but in reality, it doesn't. Okay. All right. So we are in step number 14 of the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And we're starting off here with a brand new little button up here. That way we can toggle between the index HTML and the CSS file. I told you that earlier, or alluded to this, they might be giving us a style sheet, or you might have inline styles, or you may have the HTML page where it actually has style tags on there. So this is the point where they're wanting us to take what we've written on the HTML and kind of move it over here in this area. Now, it's important to note here, start by rewriting the styles that you've created into the styles.css. However, you want to omit the style tags. Here's the thought process behind this. When you're in a styles.css page, it knows that you are doing CSS. So the script tags aren't even needed. And the HTML file will eventually reference our style sheet here. And I don't know if they've included that. It does not look like it's being referenced. Maybe it is behind the scenes, but we'll see here shortly. So I'm going to take this that we put on here, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it over here. Now, it's going to be interesting for me to see here because I haven't tested this out. If I remove the styles here, I'm just going to see if it shows up over here. It looks like it doesn't because the files are not linked. So maybe in the next step, it's going to ask us to link them. And I may have gone too far because it didn't tell me to remove it quite yet. And so maybe that's next. But I did get the congratulations. I'm ready to move on to the next one. So I went ahead and removed the styling over here. However, we are back to what we were before we applied any style. So I think that we're going to be linking the page next. So let's see in the next step. All right, so once again, I jumped the gun a little bit and it did not save the work that was done with the styling of the H1, H2 from the HTML page because we're now in step 15 in the Building Cafe menu from FreeCodeCamp. and it's asking us to go ahead and remove the whole style element and its contents. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to see how it's all shifted over, but we're going to fix this in probably the next step here. All right, so let's check the code. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next one. All right, so we are on step number 16 on the Building a Cafe menu, and this is the part where we actually get to link our CSS styles page to our index.html page. So the thought behind this is that you created this nice CSS file. However, it's not showing up on the page, and that's because you didn't tell the page that CSS file existed. So we have to link it somehow. And in here it says that we are going to be placing this inside of the head element. We're going to add a link element. We're going to apply a relationship attribute to it, and we're going to give it the value of style sheet. And then we also have another attribute on here called href, which is going to reference the style.css. Now, sometimes they don't give you, at least this part here in FreeCodeCamp, is this a void element or is it one that needs a closing tag like title? And if you're ever thought that you might have some confusion with this, you can always head over to like W3 Schools, a great resource here. And the HTML link tab here, it says it goes inside the head. It defines the relationship between the current document and an external source. And right here is exactly what we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And notice it doesn't have any kind of closure tags on it. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to place it underneath here. This is what I want us to get out of it. We have the relationship. Boom. We have the style sheet right there. And then we're providing an href with the attribute of style.css. All right. So hopefully this works. We're going to go ahead and check our code. We can also visually see that it worked because all of our stuff is now centered. And we get the congratulations. We're ready to move on to the next step. All right, we're on step number 17 of building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And here it's telling us for the style of this page to look similar on a mobile as well as desktop and laptop. We need to utilize a meta tag that's on there with the special content attribute. So it really just wants us to take this line here and copy the whole thing and put it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'll also note on here that it needs to be fully copied in here. Sometimes you'll come in here and be like, yep, I just want that. But the horizontal scroll bar doesn't really show up that well on FreeCodeCamp. So just like double clicking, making sure that you got the whole thing in there and then pasting, we should get a good check mark if we check our code. There we go. Congratulations. We're ready to move on to the next one. All right. So building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. We are on step number 18 now. And it's asking us, hey, we already know that the CSS is working because we now see our text that's centered on the page. But now it wants us to do something to the body element. And if you take a look at the index.html, your body here is this tag right here. So whenever we're doing any kind of styling for the body, it's taking into account the whole web page. So usually I'll stick the stuff up above at the very top if I'm doing any kind of targeting for something that large, which is the body, just so that we know, hey, that the body is the first thing that we come to on the HTML page. It's going to be the first element that I attack CSS-wise to do anything with. And what FreeCodeCamp is also doing here for us is letting us dig back into our memory from following patterns. Is we name the selector, which is the element that we're trying to attach to, and then we're doing the property values system, right? So the property, and they give it to you here, background color, and then they want that to be brown, okay? And then we want to have that semicolon in there. Now, I'll tell you this, that this did not behave the way that I thought it would if I did not include the semicolon in here. Because usually your CSS will break, which means you may see brown, but you would not see these items here centered. So They may be doing some code in the background to help alleviate that problem, but just know semicolons matter, and you need to make sure that you put them on here on each one of these. All right. One of the nice things about styling with color, you can use hex codes. They have common colors out there that we can do, such as your red, green, yellows, and we have light green, light purple, and you even have crazy colors out there that you're like, why would we even name those? And you have something out there called salmon, right? So that's for another video. But anyways, let's go ahead and check our work, check our code. We got the congratulations, and let's move on to the next one. Step number 19 in the Building a Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here, let's go ahead and change that background color to blurry wood. And this is one of those weird names that I was telling you about earlier there's a word out there called salmon, right? And so I'm just going to go ahead and take this right here and replace the brown with it. And now we get that nice lighter kind of cafe color of background. So I think that's what it wants us to do. Let's go ahead and try this out. Congratulations. We're ready to move on. So we're on step number 20 of building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And it introduces a new element here to us called the div element. It says on here that it's specifically for design layout purposes. And yeah, I could agree with that, meaning that usually we will group things together that we would like to have grouped to go in a certain position of our main layout. That's what it's saying there. Visually, when we put this on here without adding any style to the div, we're not going to see any difference with it whatsoever. But it's telling us that inside the body, we want to move all the elements that we've done so far to be inside of this very new element that we're creating called the div, and we need to add an ID attribute to the value, and we're going to call it menu. So a lot of stuff bubbled up into one in this step, but let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and select everything here. I'm going to hit Command X on my keyboard, Control X on your keyboard. We'll go ahead and cut it if you're utilizing Windows. And it says we need to put a div in here. And again, to make things simple, I'm just opening and closing. And then I'm going to paste what was inside of here. Again, visually, we're not seeing anything different. And then the last part here, it says, let's go ahead and give it an ID with the value of menu. That's what it's asking us to do. Let's see if this works. Congratulations. We're ready to move on to the next part. All right, so not too tough. All right, so we are in step number 21 here, and in the cafe menu, it's asking us to go ahead and that new div that we created, we need to identify it by the ID in our CSS file and make the width, and it says it wants it to be 300 pixels. So it gives us an example here of what it did with its cat example of pretending there was an ID on the web page called cat, and they wanted to make sure that the width was 250 pixels. So for us, again, something to make a note of here, we have an ID, and IDs are identified in CSS with a hashtag. It says it right here that the ID selector can be identified with the hashtag symbol and directly in front of that, and then the ID's value. We're going to come over here. I'm going to give us some room, and the ID is menu, so it wants the menu selector, and then there's the curly brackets, and then we want to go ahead and type the width, and we want to set that equal to 300 pixels. Okay, multiple ways to do width with everything, but in this case here, they want us to utilize pixels to define it, and notice how it's cramped up over there. It's no longer centered on the page. So I'm assuming we're going to be fixing this here shortly to get it to be centered. So let's see if this works. Congratulations, we're ready for the next step. Step number 22 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it talks about comments, and it says comments look like this, where we have a little asterisk here, and then we have an opening slash and a closing slash in order to signify that this needs to be a comment. And remember from earlier, comments that we make in HTML, they're not rendered. They don't get to see it in the HTML displayed to any of the visitors. And it's mainly for developers to use to put really good comments in there, or B, maybe in CSS, and I think this is what it's alluding to here, is we can comment out code to see if it's taking effect or not. And it tells us here in our style sheet, go ahead and comment out the line of background color. Now I'm going to tell you right now that there's a keyboard shortcut for this with Visual Studio Code. There's a keyboard shortcut for it in the browser here. And this is specifically for VS Code, specifically for FreeCodeCamp's browser of the CSS. And for Mac users, it's Command/, Windows users Control/. You just have to have your cursor on that line number that you're looking to comment out. All right. And so you can already notice that our brown or our burly wood color is gone. And it's exactly what this says, which it will turn your background back to the standard of the web page, which is white. Let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. I'm sure we're going to be turning that on again. It just wanted to demonstrate to you that, hey, this is how you can comment in and out code in CSS. It looks a little bit different than HTML. Step number 23 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it is looking at the existing hashtag menu selector. And let's change the background color of that div to the burly wood. So again, nothing that we haven't seen so far. We're just going to do property value whenever we're talking about CSS. So I'm going to do background color. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up with this as well is usually when there's two words for a certain property, it's obviously all lowercase, but then the space is indicated by the hyphen. And so we're going to do burly, and there we go. So now we can see that tiny little 300 pixel width Camper Cafe is now round. So with the burly wood, obviously. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Step number 24 of the Building Cafe menu in FreeCodeCamp. It says, now we can easily see that the menu element with that new burly wood background, and currently the width of the element is defined by pixels. Okay. Now we want to change the width property to 80. Now this is going to be 80% of the parent. So eventually we're going to be maybe talking about parent and children. And the way that I look at the parent and children is this div right here, menu, right? Where is it being inserted into? Who is the parent? The parent is the body. Okay. If I looked at the main tag here, who is its parent? It's the closest tag that it is embedded in, right? And so the parent of this one is the div menu. Okay. So anyways, back to the style. Let me go ahead and turn that off. And it says it wants us to do 80%. So I told you there's various ways to do widths, and some of them are pixels. Some of them you want to be specific with the pixels. Sometimes you want it to be a percentage of the parent. This is going to give us 80%. So it means that we have 20% hanging around, and the 20% on this case here happens to be over here on the far right side. And we'll see if we can get that to you in the next video here. But anyways, that's what we're talking about with the 80, okay? So we're in step number 25 of the Building Cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp, and this is what it's having us do here. So it says next you're going to want to center the menu. So as we can see right now, it is fully shifted over to the right when it should have this whole space to work with, and it needs to be centered. So the way that it's working now, the width is 80% of the potential space. And that means as of default right now, that this right here, my purple square, is representing the 20%. From the 80 to 100 is 20%. So what we're looking to do is, hey, you know what? Let's put 10% over here. Let's put 10% over here, and let the menu be centered. And the way to accomplish this, starting out without utilizing flexbox, is it says, go ahead and turn the setting to margin left, set that to auto, and set the margin right to auto. So let's go ahead and do that. Again, we're not going to see anything until we actually utilize both of these at the same time. So margin left, we're going to set that to auto. And then the next one here is margin right. And we're going to set that to auto as well. And let me make sure I spelt them properly. But now we can see that now we have that 10% here, we have the 10% here, and the width is still taking up the 80%. So now we got it centered. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. And congratulations, we're ready to move on to the next one. All right, see you in that one. All right, we are on step number 26 of the Building a Cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp, and it's having us introduced to the class. Okay, so what's the difference between a class and an ID? Classes, we can have multiple elements on our HTML page utilize the same class. But when we have an ID, we can only use that ID one time. And so I don't know the reasoning behind us being introduced to it right now. I can only assume that maybe we're going to later on have another div with the class of menu, but for right now it wants us to change this hashtag to a period. Okay, and the way that I remember this, and I always teach my students this, how do you know in CSS how to write a class if we're trying to identify it in the CSS versus the ID? In classes in high school, we go to a class, we call that a period, right? And when we think about IDs, I think about driver's license numbers. I think about social security numbers. And to me, those are ways that we are ID'd. And so we get a number associated with us, and that's a hashtag. So IDs get hashtag, classes have periods, is a great mnemonic device to think about, hey, should I use a period for this menu or should I use an ID? Right away, something that you'll pick up on then, because we changed this to a class, all of our changes went out the door. Our background went back to white, and everything just went back to normal. So what we would like to do in this, and I believe it's going to be the next step, is we're going to go back to the HTML page and turn it into a class rather than keep it as an ID. But we'll see. Anyways, let's go ahead and check our work, and congratulations, we are ready to move on. So on to the next one. Okay, so we're on 27 in the Building a Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it's exactly what I was telling you that we would be doing in this next step. In order to get all of our styling back, we're going to need to change this from an ID to a class instead. So we can go ahead and keep the equals menu, and we're just going to delete the ID and make this a class. Okay, and notice that we get it all back just fine because our CSS has already converted it over to a class by having this little period here. Okay, so let's go ahead and check the code, make sure that it works. Congratulations, we're ready to move on to the next one. Step 28 in the Building a Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it says here that since the main product for the sale is coffee, we could use an image of coffee beans. That's what we saw in that original preview, if you remember. It says go ahead and delete the comments that are inside of the body type selector and then add a new property called background image. Go ahead and set its value to the following. I'm not going to read that, but anyways, it wants us to remove the comments, so we can go ahead and select everything, delete it. And the new property that we would like to put on here is background image. And it takes either a URL that we are provided with here, or sometimes you'll see it in an assets folder. But since we don't have access to an assets folder, I'm just going to copy this entire thing. And yes, you do need to have that URL parenthesis on there. And then don't forget your semicolon at the end. So now we have some beans on the page Looking good. Let's go ahead and validate our code. And congratulations, we're ready for the next one. Step number 29 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says here, everything's looking good. Time to start adding some menu items. Add an empty article element underneath the coffee heading, and this will contain the flavor and the price for each coffee that we currently offer. What it's asking for, and we're not going to see it visually, but we'll want to type it out in the code, is it's another one of those elements out there that doesn't do anything for us to see. It doesn't have any kind of styling effect with it, but we want an article here with a closing tag of article. All right, so we're just setting the division not only from a program point of view for us, but for screen readers as well. Let's go ahead and check our work on this. Congratulations, we're ready to move on to the next. Step number 30 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here that the article element commonly contains multiple elements in there that have related information. This time we're going to nest two p tags, so two paragraph elements that are going to be inside of the article. Now the first paragraph tag is going to say French vanilla, and then the other one is going to say 3.00. So I'm assuming it's going to be a $sign maybe. So inside here, again, we're just doing two p tags, and I'll go ahead and put the closing p tag here. I know I'm going to need this again, so I'm going to copy this line. Inside here, first one is French vanilla, and then the paragraph tag after this one. So I went ahead and pasted that. We want to put 3.00. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to do next, assuming that this code is correct. There we go. Congratulations. Time to move on to the next one. Step number 31 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says, starting below with the existing coffee and price pair, add the following coffee prices utilizing an article. And then inside there, it's going to be the nested two paragraph tags. And one's going to be for the name, and then the other one's going to be for the price. So we already have a good pattern here. And this is what I would suggest you doing is just go ahead and copy this and then paste it below, and then go ahead and alter them based upon the name and the price. It's going to be a little bit tedious, time consuming, yes. And then the other thing that is going to throw you off just a little bit is the formatting on it. And unfortunately, FreeCodeCamp doesn't have a formatter here, and if they do, I'm unaware of it. But if you are the type of person that says, hey, you know what, I want this stuff to like line up, nothing wrong with, as soon as you're done typing it out, going into something like code and having it, once you paste your information here, go ahead and come down here and format HTML to make it look nice and pretty. So I'm not going to bother you with, hey, watch me type this stuff out. So I'm going to simply just redo everything here. And that gives me at least it looking nice with the whole article and getting things indented properly, just so I can see that I have it. So notice that I have the p tag for the name, p tag for the price, and then I'm starting a brand new article and just following that pattern of caramel macchiato, $3.75. Pumpkin spice. Pumpkin spice is $3.50. $3.50 here. Okay, so that's all I'm doing. And I'm going to go ahead and check the code here just to make sure. Congratulations, code passes. And let's move on to the next. Okay, 32. Moving right along. In the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it says on here that right now, the French vanilla, for example, is stacked on top of the $3, and they're centered, of course. And it would be nicer if the flavor was on the left-hand side, the price was on the right-hand side. And so in order to do this, we're going to have to create a brand new class, probably for each one here. And it says, come over here to the paragraph tag and add the class name of flavor. Now, typically when you are designing this, like in our last one, I believe it's going to have us go through each one of these and add that same class, or maybe just get one right and then do the rest. But this is the annoying part of going through this in a step-by-step basis is I knew that this was coming up. I should have just did it before, but it's in the step. Let's go ahead and try it out. I have a class called flavor, and I'm assuming in a follow along step here, we're going to create a CSS class that is going to target our French vanilla. So that way it is all the way on the left-hand side. Let's see what we have to do. Go and check it. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Step 33 of the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It looks like now that we created that class on the HTML of flavor, it would like us to go ahead and go to the CSS and add that as a class selector in here. And we already have an example of the class selector. Again, classes have periods, and so that's why we want to go ahead and do a class here. And we're going to call that one flavor. And inside of the curly brackets, it wants us to do the text line to the left. We don't want it to be centered. We want it to be to the left. And we're just going to do text align and make sure we put that colon in there. And then we're going to say we want that to be left. Okay. So you can see that the French vanilla is now shoved all the way to the left. I'm sure we're going to be adding more CSS properties to this because it doesn't look too good. However, I feel like we're going to be applying the flavor class, going back to the HTML, to all the other coffee types, right? So anyways, let's go ahead and check our code, make sure that's what they wanted, confetti. We see, congratulations, let's move on to the next. Step 34 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It looks like now they want us to add a class name. So we're back on the HTML page. And we want to go ahead and add the class name of price to it. And let's go ahead to this paragraph tag, class equals, and then in quotes, we're going to go ahead and put the keyword price on there. And let's check our code. There we go. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next. All right, so step 35 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says that now that we've made that class of price on the HTML, it's time to go ahead and do the same exact thing that we did to flavor, but we want to shove it all the way to the right. So the property that controls that is going to be the text align, and we're going to send it to the right. It's given us less tips on this. It's because we've done it before already. And all we're going to do here is we're going to say dot and then price, curly brackets, and then inside here is where we're going to do text align, and we want to set that to, okay. Notice that our 3 has moved all the way over to the right. They're currently not on the same level as far as the line goes. I'm sure we're going to address that also. So let's go ahead and check the code. Congratulations. Moving on to the next. Step 36 in building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. What we're looking at to do in this step here is says that this is what you want now, but it would sure be nice if the flavor and the price were on the same line. And that's what I was telling you earlier. We need to shift them up into the same line somehow. And to get them on the same line, you'll need to apply a styling class to the paragraph elements so that they behave more like inline elements. So there's a whole different story with block level elements that go straight across, and then inline just means that they don't take up the full block anymore. They can be stacked side by side. And so it says we want to add a class attribute with the value of item to the very first article element under the coffee heading. So we're just going to test this out here. We're going to go to the article. It said add a new class attribute. And then we want to set that equal to item. So again, visually, we're not going to see anything, but we will check our code. We get the congratulations. Let's move on to the next part, which is most likely the CSS to get this to work. Step 37 with building a cafe menu in FreeCodeCamp. In this step here, it says that there's paragraph elements that are inside of the article, which we just got done editing. And we already gave it a class name of item. We can style all of the paragraph elements that are nested anywhere where we have the word item. along with a paragraph tag. And so this is called a selector. And we're just saying, hey, if we go inside of the item class, if there are any paragraph tags, then we want to style it a certain way. Again, maybe FreeCodeCamp is just letting us know that this is a possible selector that we can use for future projects, because in here it says that we can use that selector up there and utilize the display and then inline block. Now to students and stuff as well, there's nothing wrong with putting display inline block with the flavor as well as the price, because we both know that those are both p tags. So anyways, it's just trying to show you a different way of CSS. So we're going to use dot item, and remember, it is a dot. Sometimes students will mess up on the class and forget the period, and you're not going to see any kind of changes on here. And we're just going to put on this display and then inline block. Now by default, paragraph tags are block level, and examples of inline block that are natural inline block are things like link tags, anchor tags. That's an inline block type of element. So anyways, you can see they're now smushed together all in one line. May seem silly, but let's take a look at the next part of the CSS to get them maybe to be spread apart again. So let's see what we got to do for it. But before we do that, check our code. Congratulations. Let's move on. Step 38 of the Building a Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here that they're close, right? And that is very true. It says that because the inline block elements, they will only take up as much content width as they need. So in order to spread them out, go ahead and add the width property to both the flavor and the price class selectors, and make sure that they are 50% each. So real simple. Let's go ahead and go to it and do width. I'm going to set that to 50%, and then let's go to the price, and we're going to do the same thing. Width 50. All right, let's check our code and see what's next. So step number 39 of the Building a Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says that what we just got done doing really didn't work. We have it set for 50-50 split, but utilizing a paragraph element and depending upon some white space may not get you the best results. So it suggests changing the 50% for the width to 49% on both. Now, I will tell you this, that there's other ways to go about this CSS-wise. Before there was flexbox or even grid. This would probably be the solution to get this to work properly. But I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the lesson the way that they're teaching it and see where we go from there. But let's go ahead and check the code on this. And we get the congratulations. We're ready for the next step. Number 40 in the Building a Cafe menu. We're looking at this here. It says that worked, but there's still a little space on the right side of the price. It says that you could keep trying various percentages. However, we can use the backspace key on our keyboard to make sure that there aren't any spaces. It's wanting us to do this, which is delete, and we're going all the way back, and we're just putting this on a single line just to make sure that there aren't any spaces. I personally don't see any changes on my screen. However, I am going to check the code, and that's what we wanted to do. But like I said, I didn't see anything go on. And again, it shouldn't really matter if I did 20 return keys on this to go all the way down here or not. The code gets compiled and read the same way. So maybe it's just checking to make sure that we didn't put any extra spaces in. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and submit and go to the next challenge. Step number 41, building your cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. And it says on here, now that we went ahead and did that previous step, let's go ahead and change this to 50% and 50. And now we get full left and full right. So very interesting to see that happen, to go from the 50%'s not working and now they are. So let's see what's next here. Step 42 of the Building the Cafe menu. It says on here that now we know how it works with the remaining article and P elements. Let's go ahead and match the first set that we did up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish reading this because it's important. It says start by adding the class item to the article. So don't go messing around with the P's, the P tags, until it actually tells us to do so. In the article, again, we just want to add that class item. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to every single article, and make sure that you're doing it on the opening article and not the closing article. All right, so I think I got them all done. Again, we're just going to check our work here, and we're going to do the rest in a different step. So there we go. Congratulations. Moving on to the next step. Next, we're going to do step 43 with building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. Is we want to add the P elements to make sure that they're on the same line with no space. And so I'm just going to use my backspace and get them all on the same line. And again, like I didn't know anything about this. Like I said, usually when we're dealing with prices on either side, we'll use something like flexbox. So this seems like a short little hack workaround that you will probably not do as a real developer, but we're going to do it so we can pass this unit test that they're giving us. So I'm going to go ahead and come here, check our code, and we got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next step. Step number 44 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says in here, for the remaining P tags, let's go ahead and add the class that we would like for flavor as well as price. So let me go ahead and just do a couple here. I'm going to grab this for the flavor. So we're going to go to each flavor and simply just add it. All right, I'm going to pause the video here and come back when we're doing the price. All right, those are all done. Now it's time to do the price. I'm just going to grab the class price, and then I'm just going to paste them on each one of these prices, and that should be good to go. Notice that on our visual representation of the website, the prices are all on the far right with the flavoring on the left side. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations, we're ready to move on. Step number 45 in the Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here, if you make the width of the page preview just a little bit smaller, you're going to notice at some point where the text on the left starts wrapping onto the next line. That is going to be true. We're going to demonstrate that here for you. But it says this is because the paragraph elements on the left-hand side, they can only take up 50% of the space before we get a line break. So since you know that prices to the right are significantly taking up fewer spaces, then we can change the flavor class width to 75% and keep the width for the price to be 25%. And so what I typically do here for students to visualize this, I'm just going to put an outline on here to demonstrate to you what we're doing, what we're talking about. And as you can see, when we are getting this browser, just a couple of, we're going to really go down here, but notice that the caramel macchiato, we get a line break at a certain point, okay? And so what it's asking us to do is saying, hey, you know what? The text, the flavoring is typically larger than the price. And so we can give a little leeway here before it actually line breaks. And so we can do 75% for the flavor, and then we can do 25% for the price. And notice with these outlines here, the French vanilla, the caramel macchiato, they're given a little bit more room before they do eventually wrap, but whose screen browser is going to be that small is what they're saying. Anyways, hopefully that outline trick helped visualize what's going on, because sometimes it might not be as easy to picture things. And using that outline is a great trick to see what kind of elements are actually on your page for you to alter. But anyways, we're going to go ahead and click on the test this out. and we got the congratulations, so we're moving on to the next one. Building the cafe menu, we're on step number 46 from FreeCodeCamp, and it says on here, we're going to come back to the styling menu in a few steps, but for now, let's go ahead and add a second section element just below the first. And this is going to be for displaying the desserts that are at the cafe. So just hitting the enter key here, and let me scroll up so we can see it. And we're just going to do another section, and then we want to add the closing tags to it. Okay, let's go ahead and test our code. Congratulations, on to the next. Building the cafe menu, we're on step number 47. And it says in here, add an H2 element, give it the text desserts. So we'll do H2, and we're going to put in desserts and close off the. All right, let's check our code. There we go. Moving on to the next. Building the cafe menu, we're in step number 48 for FreeCodeCamp. And this one here, we're looking at an empty article element underneath the heading here of desserts and give it a class attribute of item. So we're not going to see anything in particular with this. It's just going to be visual there for the skeleton of our HTML. So we're going to do article, and then we're going to give it a class. Let me go ahead and open and close these here. We're going to give it a class of item, and let's go ahead and close that off. All right, let's test this out. Congratulations. Moving on. Building the cafe menu, we're on step number 49. It says on here, nest two paragraph elements inside of your article element. The first one should have that text of donut. The second one should be the price of $1.50. Make sure they're both put on the same line. So we learned that lesson, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Paragraph tag here, and this one says donut. Okay, and then the next one here is going to be the price of $1.50, and we'll go ahead and put that in here, also with the closing p tag. All right, let's go ahead and check our code. There it is. Congratulations. Moving on to the next one. All right, we are on step number 50 of building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it says that we just got done creating the two paragraph elements. Let's go ahead and add classes to this. So the first one's going to get a class attribute of the dessert. The other one's going to get the value of price. So let's go ahead and test this out here. Class. We're going to set that equal to dessert, and then we're going to come over here and add a class to it, and this one's going to be price. Okay, so we haven't created a class for the dessert yet. I'm assuming it's coming. Let's go ahead and check the code here. Congratulations, we're on to the next one. This is going to be step number 51 with the building cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it says on here that something doesn't look right. We've added the class attribute value with the p tag, and the donut text is not right. And that's because we haven't created it on here quite yet. So what we can do here is we can go ahead and put in another selector in here, and we're going to add a comma, and then we want dessert to be on here. And this should fix it as long as we put a period right here, and that visually shows up here. And let me go ahead and turn me off, but we can see that the donut's over here on the left, and then the $1.50 is on the right. Let's go ahead and check our work. We got the congratulations, so we're moving on to the next one. Building the cafe menu in FreeCodeCamp. We're on step number 52. It says, below is the dessert that you just added. The rest of the dessert prices are located here. Make sure that we add 3 more articles, and each one of those articles have 2 nested paragraph elements. Each element should have the correct dessert and price in the text to match this example code here. What I'm going to do here real quick, I'm going to highlight everything. And to make things look nice and pretty, I'm just going to hit the enter key here, and then I'm going to put my blinking cursor here, and then I'm just going to go ahead and paste. I'm going to hit the enter key again, do the same thing 3 more times to get everything that I need down here. So there we go. So now that I have my 3 new ones, I want to simply just match this up. So cherry pie we'll go here, and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and pause and then resume once I have all this done. All right, I think I have them all in properly. Cherry pie, cheesecake, cinnamon roll, $2.50, $3, $2.75. They need to be in that order. Let's go ahead and check to make sure we got it right, and we got the congratulations. Let's move on to the next one. Building the cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. We're on step number 53, and it says in here that we can give our menu some spacing between the content and the sides by applying the padding property. Now, if you are learning HTML, which I assume that you are if you're watching this video, is that there's CSS out there. Something to maybe do a search on is the CSS box model. Definitely would help you out with understanding what's the difference between padding and margins and borders, because they all interact with each other, and it might be something to further look into. However, with this here, it says, given the menu class, and so that's the one that we're in right now, go ahead and add a padding left of 20 pixels as well as right of 20 pixels. Now, there's the way that they're telling you to go about it. There's also a different way to adjust for padding, but I'm going to do what it says because it's going to be running tests to see if I actually did a padding left or padding right. I'm just going to do padding left, and we want this to be 20 pixels, and then on the right, we want that to be 20 pixels as well. Notice it gave us a little bit of a buffer room on here. It expanded the menu item itself. Whenever we're adding padding to something like this, no longer is this 80% true anymore, because we're shoving the parent container out when this kind of happens. So anyways, let's go ahead and check our results here. We got the congratulations. Moving on to the next. All right, we're on step number 54 with Building Cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it says that this looks a lot better. Let's go ahead and add 20 pixels to the top and bottom. All right, definitely better ways to go about doing this than having a bunch of these properties here. And again, maybe it tells us to do something else to clean up the code, but let's do what it says. We want a padding top. We want that to be 20 pixels. And then the padding bottom, we want that to be 20 pixels as well. All right. So yeah, looking really good. And let's go ahead and see what is next. Let's go ahead and check our code first. There we go. Moving on. All right, step 55 of building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. This is where I was leading to, because this is very junky right here. Padding left, padding right, top and bottom. Because we are addressing all the sides here, it would be better if we were to just delete these and just use one property called padding, and we can set this to 20 pixels. Now, I'll let you know with this, and matter of fact, let me move my picture out of the way here so we can see. So the thing about padding is that if they're all the same values that you would like to apply on the top, the right, the bottom, and the left, then this is what we can do. Just supply it with one number, okay? It's no different than us doing the following. If I highlight this and I go ahead and do this. So the way that this reads is, hey, the top and bottom are 20, the left and right are 20, okay? I could go ahead and add another 20 pixels here and another 20 pixels here. And this means that we're going all the way around. And whenever we have values like this, then we're starting at the top. The first number is at the top, so it's the 12 o'clock position. Then we go to the 3 o'clock position for the next value, and then it goes to the bottom and then the left. It always starts to go in a clockwise manner. But anyways, it just says that we can just supply it with the 20 pixels, and that will be good for us. And I'm fine with that one. So let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next. All right, so we are on step number 56 with building a menu for the cafe. This is from FreeCodeCamp. And what we're looking at doing for this step, it's basically telling us, hey, on very large white screens, look how far away these menu items go. how can we put a fix to this? We can apply another property. It's a new property we haven't learned yet, which is the max width property. And we want to apply this to the menu itself. So this little brown piece of paper is what we're talking about. And we want to give it a max width, and we want to set that equal to 500 pixels. Okay. And so when we do that, there's going to be a certain point where, like right now, it's growing. But once it reaches to a certain point, as it did right there, it's no longer going to grow anymore, but it will shrink, and it only grows up to a certain point. So that's one of those properties that very common for you to use, for you to know about and memorize. All right, let's test the code, make sure that's what they wanted. Congratulations. We're moving on. Step number 57 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here that we can change the font family of the text to give it a different look. And the default browser has it set a certain way. So let's go ahead. We're going to be introducing here a new property. This property is called font-family, and then we want to apply this right here, the sans serif. Let's go ahead and we're going to do the font family. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key. Again, order doesn't matter on here. It's just whether or not the property is on here. And then the sans for this, usually when we're dealing with the font family, and if the font has a space in it, like New Times Roman, then you'd want to use quotes, but because there's no spaces or anything, we have a hyphen between the words on this, it is acceptable to have it. So hopefully you saw that font change when I put that in there. We can go ahead, if you wanted, you can comment out the code and comment it back in and see the change. Here it is. Let's check the code. We got the congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Building a cafe menu, FreeCodeCamp. We're on step number 58. And in here, it says it's a bit boring with all the text having the same font family. You can still have a majority of your text to be the sans serif. However, let's make the H1 and H2 elements a little bit different by utilizing the impact font. And so, again, when we're applying two different selectors utilizing the same font or font family, and maybe this is all we're doing to the H1 and H2 to make them similar, you can combine them by utilizing a comma. So that way you don't have to do two separate ones. And so we can come in here, we can do H1, comma, H, and then we can do the curly braces. And again, we already seen an example of font family. And so that's just font dash family. And then we want it to be the impact font. So I'm just going to copy and paste it. And then don't forget the semicolon. So again, we can comment the code out and see the difference. And again, this is only attacking. This is only being applied to the H1 and H2. All right, so let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. Let's move to the next. So we're on step number 29, where we're learning the basics of building a cafe menu. And in this part here, it says that we need to add a backup value or a fallback value for a font. Now, the reason that we want to do this, or the reason that it's kind of explained this to us, is that not all fonts that we decide to put on here are web-safe fonts. Sometimes people may have to install fonts. A lot of times what developers would use is something like Google Fonts. And if that's something that may interest you, make sure you check mark that or go and search that real quick and see all the available cool fonts that are out there for you to use. So anyways, this is saying that, hey, let's go ahead and do a fallback of serif. So we want to put this right on the tail end of our font family. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to hit the space bar and add the next one. So this is going to give us a way for us to have a backup font. Now, the one thing that we will put in here is a comma, and that is going to separate these. So it lets the browser know, hey, we're going to try the impact first. And if we get a failure from this, we're going to default to the last item on here. And you can daisy chain as many of these fonts that you would like to have as backup put on this font family list. So sometimes you'll see 3 or even 4 different font families put on this CSS in order for it to try this one first, try the next one, and then finally try something that looks very similar to it, because the idea here is that this serif is better than nothing. You can see what that looks like. So it gets you close, but not quite. So that's, again, the point of having a fallback. So let's go ahead and check our code here. And we got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next one. All right, step number 60 with building the cafe menu from FreeCodeCamp. It says make the EST 2020 text italicized by creating an established class selector and giving the font style the property with the value of italic. So this is where we're going to come in here, and it says the established class. So that's the keyword here. It's not an ID, it is a class. And so we're going to do the period and then established. And then inside here, it wants us to do the font style, and then we want to set that to italic. And let's go ahead and check our code and see if that's what they wanted. I don't know if we want to apply this to the HTML page quite yet, or if that's a different step. So we're not going to see anything visually happen on here. So let's go ahead and check the code. Congratulations. Let's probably move on to the HTML. So we are on step number 61 in building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And it says on here, now let's go ahead and apply that established class that we just got done creating to the established 2020 text. So we're going to come down here to the paragraph tag, and we're going to add, remember we did a class, so it's going to be class equals, and then it's going to be established. Okay? And once we do that, we should see that our text here, it is now italicized, and we should be good to proceed with what they wanted. On to the next. So we're on step number 62 of building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and in here it says the typography heading for H1 and H2 are set by the values on the browser. And typically an H1 is right around what we call is by default 2 or 2 M's. And what does that mean? Usually the font for the web page, just a normal font, is 16 pixels. When we equate this to an H1, 2 times 16 is 32. That's the default setting. And of course, like an H2 is probably around 1.5 EM or M's. And that is equivalent to, you're going to have to multiply the 1.5 times the 16 in order to get the correct pixels of what that would equate to. In either case, we are increasing our default size. So what we would see is the Camper Cafe is going to get a little bit bigger. Same thing with the H. So we can't target both of them like we did down below with this H1 comma H2. They both deserve their own separate selectors. So we're going to do an H1 with the curly bracket, and then this is going to be font size, and they want us to use 40 pixels. Sometimes when you guys get a little more advanced with this, usually this will turn into REMs or EMs instead. So then we'll do an H2, and then we'll put that in here as well, font size, and we want this to be set to 30 pixels. All right, so hopefully you saw a little bit of change here with it. The font did get bigger on the Camper Cafe. Same thing with coffee and desserts. Let's go ahead and check our work. We got the congratulations, and we're moving on to the next one. Step number 63 in building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says on here, we need to add the footer element at the bottom of the main element. So it looks like we're towards the end here, and maybe we'll just do a footer and style it. So let's see what we got to do. Again, we're just going to be utilizing the semantic tag of footer. If you remember from last time, it's just like main, it's just like article. It's for screen readers mainly and SEO to know where things are located on your page. Anyways, footer goes at the bottom. We're going to check our code here, and we got the congratulations. We're moving on. All right, we're on step number 64 now of the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And this one looks like it's packed with a bunch of stuff to do, and we I have to do stuff from memory from the previous lesson, but it says in here, inside the footer, go ahead and add a paragraph element. All right, so let's go ahead and break this thing down. So I'm going to do a paragraph element. So that is the p tag, and I'm going to close it off. All right, so when we get with complicated elements, multiple steps within a step, this is what I suggest. Close it off. Go ahead and start closing it off right away. The next thing in there, it says then nest an anchor element, an anchor tag. That is the anchor tag here. And again, it looks a little funky. And to make things look better, I'm going to go ahead and hit the enter key here. And I'm going to come over to this, hit the enter key, just to make sure that I have opening and closing tags. And it says in the anchor tag here, make sure that we have this as our href in here. It does say that we want the target to be blank also. And then we want the text inside to be visit our website. So I'm going to do visit our website. Okay. And then the href, let's go ahead and make that. I'm going to go grab this URL. So anchor tags get that href. We're going to set that equal to what we just got done copying there. And then it says that we want to make the target on here, the target attribute, we want to set that to blank. Okay. So I think this kind of checks the box here for getting everything. Let's go ahead and check the code. We got the congratulations. We're going to move on to the next one. Step 65 with the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says add a second paragraph element just below the one with the link and give it the text of 123 FreeCodeCamp Drive. So this is what we're going to do at the end of this paragraph tag. We're just going to do our opening and closing, and then inside of the brackets here, go ahead and copy that so that way you don't have to type it all out. And then let's go ahead and check our code. Hopefully it works. There we go. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next. All right. So we are in step number 66 here of the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And it says that we want to add an HR element to display a divider between the sections of different content. Let's first just add an HR between the paragraph element with the class established and the section. So what element looks like is it's just this. It's one of those void ones where it doesn't require a closing one. And there are attributes, believe it or not, that you can shove inside the HR. Maybe we'll get to it, maybe we won't, but it is something interesting to take a look as far as like you can change the width and everything of it. So HR stands for horizontal rule. You'll see that it created this nice ruler to divide up the space. And I think that we're going to be doing this maybe one more time. But for right now, it just has us doing it on it. Let's go ahead and check our code. We got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next. So step number 67 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It has us in the styles page, and it wants us to target the HR element, so the horizontal rule element. And it's wanting us to increase the thickness of it. And we can do that by changing the height property. We can come over here, we can do the HR and then the curly brackets, and then we want to change the height. Well, what do we want to set it to? It says 3 pixels, and we can go ahead and do it. Notice that it did get a little bit thicker there. We're going to go ahead and check our code. We got the congratulations, and we're moving on to the next lesson. Building a cafe menu, we're on step number 68 for FreeCodeCamp, and it says on here, let's change the background color of the horizontal rule to brown. So that way it matches the coffee beans. And so sometimes students will get some properties confused and they're like, let me just go ahead and type the word color and change it. So color responds to text, not so much right here where it says change the background color. And again, we've seen this before with other properties. So we're going to do background color. We want to set that to brown. And you can see that the horizontal rule now is brown. So let's go ahead and check our code, see if that works. We got the congratulations. Let's move to the next step. Building a cafe menu, we're on step number 69 for FreeCodeCamp, and it says, notice the gray along the edges of the line. So let's go ahead and zoom in here. We can see that gray going around. They say that is being drawn from the border. So let me go ahead and zoom out here. So we have access to a border color property here that they give us on the step 69. And it says, let's go ahead and change that to the same color that our background color is. And so we can do border color, and we want to set that to brown and put the semicolon in there. So now the gray is gone, and it looks like a solid brown line all the way through and through. Let's check our code. We got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next one. Step number 70 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says, notice that we have a very thick line here, and I would agree, it's thick. And that is because we're combining a border width. So by default, this border width on the horizontal rule is 1 pixel. Now, when we think about this, there's a top and bottom, and the top is 1 pixel, the bottom's 1 pixel, and we're applying a height here of 3 pixels. That's how we get it to be so thick. It's at 5 pixels. And so it just wants us to correct the height on here, bring this down to 2, and so that way the top and the bottom by default is 1 on the top, 1 on the bottom. That makes a total of 4 altogether if we're counting up the height here. So let's go ahead and check our code. We got the congratulations, and we're moving on to the next one. Step number 71 in building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. We're going to go ahead and it says go down to the bottom of the main where it meets the footer and put an HR there. So I'm going to come on down here all the way down to the main, and in between the footer, I'm going to go ahead and apply an HR. And we can see down here, let me move the picture here. We can see that we now have a horizontal rule right there. Let's go ahead and check our code, make sure it is good. Congratulations, we're ready to move on to the next. So step number 72 with building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, we're looking at adding a little bit more space on the body. So a little more space, pushing things inward, and we want to utilize the padding property. So we're going to come in here, we're going to do padding, and they want us to do 20 pixels all around. So the way that we can do that is just do padding, 20 pixels, and we should be good to go. Let's go ahead and check out our code. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next one. Building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. We're on step number 73 here, and it says, focusing on the menu items, there's a fairly large gap between each line, right? So the French vanilla, the caramel macchiato, the line spacing is quite a bit. And so what it's wanting us to do is target the item selectors and the p tags. So we already have a CSS selector already on here for the paragraphs that are defined inside of the items, right? Like we don't want to affect the footers paragraph here. We don't want to affect the established 2020. We just want to focus on the items. And so it's saying, hey, let's go ahead and do a top and bottom margin of 5 pixels. So we don't care about the left and right. We just want to focus on the top and the bottom. And so this is where we're going to use the margin top and the margin bottom, and we're going to set those to 5 pixels each. Don't forget to include your semicolons at the end of each one of these, and that way you won't run into any kind of errors. But you can already see that just by applying that, the menu items are now scrunched together, making it look more like a menu. Now let's go ahead and check our code to see if this works. We got the congratulations, and we're moving on to the next one. So we're on step number 74 of building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. And on here, it tells us that we would like to increase the font size to 18 pixels. So typically paragraph tags are around 16 pixels. So this is going to make it a little bit larger. And all we have to do is come down here and we'll just do font size. We're going to set that to 18 pixels. And let's go ahead and check our work. We got the congratulations. We're ready for the next one. So now we're on step number 25 in building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. And it says changing the margin bottom to 5 pixels looked really great. However, that space between the cinnamon roll menu item and the second HR element doesn't seem to match the space between the top horizontal rule element and the coffee heading. Let's add some space by creating a new class named bottom line using 25 pixels for the margin top property. So this is where we're just going to create a brand new class selector, even though we're not going to see anything visually. We're going to do bottom line, and then we're going to do the margin top, and we want to set that to 25 pixels. Okay. Let's go ahead and check our code. We got the congratulations. Now we're going to probably move on to the HTML section. So now it has us go back to our HTML page. This is for step number 76 in building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. And it says, let's go ahead and add that class to this HR. So I'm just going to do class. And then we came up with the bottom line. And once we do that, we can see that it gave it a nice little space down there. And I can go ahead and just show you the before and after here. There's the before, and then here's the after. Gave it just a little bit more space and shoved that down. Let's go ahead and check the code, make sure that it works. We got the congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Okay, step number 77 in building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says, next we're going to be styling the footer element. Let's keep the CSS somewhat organized by adding a comment to the end of the styling for the CSS with the word footer. This is where we do the command slash or control slash on here. And we're just going to type footer. And then let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations. This passes this test. All right. So again, we're just keeping things organized. Yes, it's very typical for you to organize your thoughts, use some comments in your CSS, and put things in a position where it matches the flow of your HTML. You're going to get into the pattern of doing it, but putting comments in your CSS, definitely a plus to help you stay organized and know where things are. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. Okay, we're on step number 78 of building a cafe menu. And for this step here, it's telling us, hey, let's go ahead and focus on the footer element and let's make all the text in there have a font size of 14 pixels. So if we remember from earlier, I told you that for a standard web page, the paragraph tag is typically going to be 16 pixels is the natural default value of that. And we're going to make it 14 pixels, which is going to be a little bit smaller. Now I'm going to move my photo here just so we can see what is going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the code. The element that we are trying to target is the footer. So remember we created a semantic element called footer, and anything inside the footer is going to be 14 pixels. So we're going to do that by doing this, as footer is going to be my selector. And then the font size, we want that to be 14 pixels. Now, it might be hard to see on my video. Hopefully, when you're doing it, you'll see it a little bit better. But the font size is decreasing. And again, I can comment this code out here to make it a little bit bigger. And it's unfortunate that FreeCodeCamp keeps having to refresh that page and it doesn't retain where it was when I was scrolled. But the font that we're looking at here is the visit our page as well as the 123 FreeCodeCamp drive, right? So let's go ahead and check our code, make sure that it's what it's wanted, and it is. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part here. All right, step number 79 in building the cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. We're looking at setting the default color of the link that has not yet been clicked is typically blue. The default color of the link that has already been visited, you'll typically get purple, and that's what we have right here with the visit our website. So it says make the footer links the same color regardless if the link had been visited. Use a type selector for this, which is the A tag, and use the value black for the color property. Originally when I was reading this, I was saying to myself, all right, it wants all the hyperlinks that are in the footer only. And that is not the case. It wants all of the anchor tags, not just the footer. And so I'm just going to do the A tag here. And we want the color to be black. And we should see the purple now fade to black, whether or not we visited it or not. Let's go ahead and check our code to see if that's what it really wanted. There we go. Congratulations. We're moving on to the next one. Number 80 of building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. And this right here, it says that you've changed the properties of the link, and what they would like us to do is utilize a pseudo class, which is this right here. We're targeting the anchor tag and the visited portion of it. And we can apply any kind of thing that we would like to do to that anchor tag if somebody had in the past clicked on that link and has gone to that website. So we want to change the color of the visit our website to a gray. So how do we go about doing that? We're going to have to come down here and we're just going to do the A, and then we're going to do the colon. And then we want that pseudo class on there, which is visited. Then we can open up our curly brackets and add that property of color. And gray is actually one of the named colors that we can use. And so now we see down here at the very bottom that the visit our website is now gray because we visited that website before. Okay. So now let's go ahead and check our code to see if that's what they wanted. There we go. We got the congratulations. We're moving on to the next. 88% done. We're almost there. So step number 81 in the building cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It states on here, we've already done a pseudo selector before. Let's go ahead and do another one with the hover effect this time. So we want to change the color of that link to be brown. So like right now when we hover over it, it's not changing any color. So we can come over to our line 77 that it has us fill in, and we want to do the A hover this time. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and we want to go ahead and place in here the color of brown. So we want color brown, semicolon, and then we want to close off the curly brackets. So now when we hover over this, we get the brown color. So let's check our code, see if it works. That's what they wanted, and we're on to the next one. So in building a cafe menu, we're on step number 82 for FreeCodeCamp, and this has us do another pseudo class, which is the active. So when we're actively clicking on it, we want that color to be white. So again, I'm going to help myself out here. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in here, and the property name is going to be color. The value is going to be white. So let's go ahead and check our code for it. We got the congratulations. Let's move on to the next. All right, step 83 in the building cafe menu. It's asking us to do a couple of things here in this step. It says that we want to change the color of the link that was visited. We want to change that to black. So let's go ahead and make this black. Okay, next is use the brown for when the link is actually clicked. So that's down here on the active. And let's go ahead and check our code. Looks like we got the congratulations. All right. So it just wanted us to do some more busy work with some of the things that we've already been working with. All right, on to the next. All right, we're in step number 84 for this with the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says that we would like to change the top margin of the camper cafe. Remember, we only have one H1 on the website, so we don't have to specifically target that one because we only get one, and we want it to be 0. So we want to put here margin top. We want to set that to 0, and we don't have to put pixels on there or anything like that. The 0 is inferred that you don't want anything. So let's go ahead and check our results here. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next step. 92% done. Let's go. We're on step 85 of the building cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it says on here that we would like to have the H1 element, the space between it and the established, to be 15 pixels. So we're going to do margin bottom, and we want to set that to 15 pixels. Okay. So let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next. Step 86 of the building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, it says that we need to decrease the margin space below the address, and on that P element, we're going to create a brand new class here called address. So let's go ahead and do .address, and we want to open up that curly bracket, and we want to do margin bottom, and we want to set that to 5 pixels. So let's go ahead and do 5 pixels, semicolon. Again, we're not going to see anything visually because we haven't applied that to the actual address paragraph tag. So let's go ahead and check our results. Perfect. Let's move on to the next. We're on step number 87 of building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp, and it says on here that we want to apply the address class that we just got done creating in our style sheet, and we want to apply it to the paragraph tag containing the address. So this is where we're going to do class. We're going to set that equal to address, and you can see that it changed it just a little bit ever so slightly. Feel free to toggle on, toggle off that by misspelling the class name in order to see it down here, but it did shrink it up, made it look a little more eye-pleasing. So I'm going to go ahead and check our code here. Congratulations. Let's move on to the next. Step number 88 of building a cafe menu with FreeCodeCamp. It says on here, the menu's looking good. However, all we have right now as far as an image goes is our coffee beans. Let's go ahead underneath the coffee, H2, go ahead and add an image tag. So we're going to do an image tag. Again, image tags are void elements. And inside here, we're going to do the source. We're going to set that equal to the file that they give right here for the image. So this is their self-hosted one. So we have that nice little coffee icon. And then it wants us to provide an alt value. And we're going to set that equal to coffee icon. So in the event that it can't be rendered, it's going to render the alt. This is for your screen readers out there. All right, let's check the code. Congratulations, we're moving on to the next. Step number 89 in our quest of building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says in here, the image that you added is not centered horizontally like the coffee heading is. So let's go ahead and make the following changes. In our CSS, we're going to target the image. We're going to open up the curly brackets. Now, we've seen this before with other selectors, like the centering of menu, where we did a margin left and a margin right of auto. And for this, it says that we need to make sure that we use the value for block for the display, and then we can use the margin left and margin right to horizontally center this. So we need to change the element to a block element. So display block, and then we're going to do the margin left, margin right auto. So matter of fact, we got examples of that up here for the menu, and I'm just going to put that here, and that should get it centered. Let's go ahead and check our work. Congratulations, it passes. Let's go ahead and move on to the next. All right, we are on step number 90 of the building a cafe menu. And this last part here is saying, hey, let's go ahead and add another image for the desserts. So right underneath the desserts, we're going to do another image, and we want to set the source. We're going to set that equal to this right here. Okay, so there's the pie. It's coming in. We're going to do the alt. We want to set that to pie icon, and then we want to put our closing bracket on there. Okay. That gave us our pie right here. It's nicely centered. We don't have to do any CSS work because we did it on the last step. And let's go ahead and check our code to make sure it's what they expect. We got the congratulations, and we are 99% done. Whew. All right, let's keep going. All right, so we are on step number 91 of the CSS building a cafe menu for FreeCodeCamp. It says it sure would be nice for that vertical spacing of the H2 elements in the image were a little bit smaller. So instead of going to the H2, it says that we should just apply a negative margin on the images. So we can come over here and we're going to do a margin top, and we want to set that equal to minus 25 pixels. And that should bring that image a little bit closer to those H2 tags. And once we've done that, let's go ahead and check our code. Congratulations, your code passes, and we are 100% complete. All right. So if you made it to the end of this video, great. Hopefully this video helped you in any way, and make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and keep on coding, and we'll see you the next time.